In a post-apocalyptic world, an unconscious and injured Daryl floats tied to an overturned rowboat. Eventually the waves drop him on a beach and Daryl drinks from an abandoned bucket. Then he takes an old road until he finds a sign in French. Moments later he discovers an abandoned village. In a motorboat he gets some supplies and a tape recorder. He listens to the owner's logs describing the family's journey to find a safe place and confirms he's in France. That night Daryl cooks a fish he caught while still listening to the logs. The next morning, Daryl packs all the supplies, adds a message to the recorder, and takes a boat hook from a skeleton before leaving on a new journey. For the next few days, Daryl continues to travel through the land, finding many abandoned buildings and lots of skeletons on the way. One afternoon, he enters a big market to look for supplies. Suddenly a type of zombie known as burner appears behind him, and the noises it makes get the attention of more creatures. Daryl immediately fights those who get too close and learns that they have acidic blood. He brings a few down but a zombie manages to grab his arm to start burning it before Daryl gets to kill it. Thankfully the burners are slow, so by using his hook and his knife, Daryl gets to kill them all in just a few minutes. After leaving the market, Daryl wraps his wound and notices that someone is watching him from afar. He ignores them and keeps moving. The person is Isabel, who is hanging signs with the phrase "God loves you." Moments later Daryl finds a camp with a living family who luckily speaks English. Maribel explains that her blind grandfather Guillaume hurt his ankle, so she offers food in exchange for medical supplies. Daryl accepts the trade and tells them he's trying to return to the USA. Maribel thinks they could travel together to help each other, but Daryl refuses. At that moment a jeep with two armed men arrives and they make Daryl drop his hook. Michelle grabs Maribel and begins dragging her off, so Daryl jumps on Henri to stab him with his knife. Michelle shoots at Daryl, grazing his neck and causing him to fall. When Michelle is about to kill Daryl, Maribel hits him from behind and kills him with a hook. Then Guillaume reveals he's not actually blind and knocks Daryl down. The duo steals all of Daryl's things and Maribel stabs Henri in the head to keep him from reanimating. As Daryl passes out, Isabel enters and scares off the thieves with a gunshot. After dreaming about his loved ones, Daryl wakes up in a convent, where some nuns take care of him and cauterize his burn with a hot poker. This makes him pass out again. The next time he wakes up, he realizes he's tied to the bed. Isabel checks on him, revealing she's a nun too. She explains they cauterized his wound to stop it from spreading. They're a small community of nuns that has been surviving for a decade by farming, gardening, and scavenging. Before taking a bath, Daryl notices that the nuns outside are playing with a boy. He falls asleep in the bathtub and has a nightmare of floating in the ocean. Isabel brings him clean clothes and treats his injuries with honey garlic to avoid an infection. She sees the older wounds on his back and he explains that his father was abusive. In return he points at the scars on Isabel's wrist, which implies she tried self-deleting in the past. Afterward Isabel gives Daryl a tour, saying men usually aren't allowed. The boy is an exception because he grew up there. The church has a bunch of medieval weapons that the nuns use to protect themselves and a radio in the office, which Isabel will let Daryl use when he's feeling better. Lunch is brought to Daryl outside and while he eats, Laurent mirrors all his movements. Eventually Laurent comes closer to chat and gives Daryl a Rubik's Cube while telling him that he deserves happiness too. In private, Mother Superior Veronique scolds Isabel for bringing a stranger to the convent, ignoring Isabel's theory about Daryl being the one. Later Daryl's trying to pick the office lock when he hears a zombie growling. He rushes outside and finds Laurent reading to a zombie in a cell. The boy explains the zombie is their priest and they're waiting for him to rise again. Daryl is creeped out by all this and announces he's leaving. Isabel tries to convince him to stay, saying he's the messenger who must deliver Laurent. She shows him a drawing that Laurent made 3 weeks ago which shows a man floating in the sea. There's a prophecy that says Laurent will be the Messiah that revives humanity, and Isabel wants Daryl to take the boy to a base up north belonging to the resistance group known as the Union of Hope. The priest was supposed to do that, but he became a zombie. Daryl thinks it's stupid to think prayers will fix the priest and takes some weapons from the armory. Then he goes to the office and tries to use the radio, but Isabel admits she lied to keep him here and the radio is broken. There's a map with a marked route and Isabel explains that was the road the priest was originally going to take Laurent through to reach the north because there are many friends along the way. Meanwhile on the road Maribel and Guillaume are startled by a car approaching them. A group of men ask about 2 guys that came to this area recently and Guillaume claims they didn't see them. Suddenly Stephen hits him in the face and steps on his hand, so Maribel lies and tells him that 2 men saved them from a robber, but she and her grandfather ran away and don't know what happened to them. Then Stephen beats Guillaume to death and forces Maribel to take them to where the fight happened. The men recognize Henri and Stephen begins calling for Michel, revealing he's his brother. A zombified Michel comes out of a building and Stephen has no choice but to stab him in the head as he cries. Maribel tells them that an American man did this and the men find one of Isabel's signs on the ground. They know about the convent so they decide to head there. Daryl leaves the convent only to quickly hide when he hears cars coming. Soon Stephen and his crew known as the Guerriers force their way into the convent and Veronique keeps them distracted while the nuns hide Laurent and grab weapons. The men search the building and find the zombified priest, so they kill him. Laurent comes out to cry for the dead man and the guerrier announce they're recruiting the boy. Isabelle struggles with a man to save Laurent, and when the guy is about to kill her, Daryl throws an axe at his back to kill him first. He rushes to hide while the guerrier open fire, giving Isabelle and Laurent a chance to run too. The guerrier split and 3 of them go after the nuns, who are ready to defend themselves. Many women are shot down while others try to stab the attackers. Stephen takes 2 men inside to look for Daryl, who manages to kill one of them when he separates from the group. After ambushing the second man, Daryl uses him as a shield when Stephen opens fire, forcing him to kill his friend. Then he jumps on Stephen and tries to fight him, but Stephen overpowers him. At that moment Isabelle joins the fight and Stephen runs away, so Daryl shoots a gun and hits him in the arm. Daryl tries going after him but he's out of bullets and Stephen escapes alone in a car. Afterward Daryl checks the yard and finds all the dead men and nuns. One of the men has become a zombie, so he picks up a gun and shoots him in the head. Inside, Veronique tells Daryl that he's the one after all and dies. That night Daryl sits around the fire with Laurent, Isabelle, and Sylvie and agrees to take them north. In northern France, a captain explains to Janet and her group known as the Power of the Living that he's lost all his prisoners. Dr. Lafleur explains that all his research has been destroyed, but there still are a few zombies that can be used as test subjects. The captain tells Janet that his prisoners were freed by Daryl, and Janet orders her men to find him. A flashback shows Isabelle having fun at a club while consuming illegal uppers. On her way out, it's revealed that she stole lots of things from other patrons. Suddenly she hears screaming and growling, some after taking some medicine she leaves the building. On the street she finds more people panicking, so she hurries to the subway station. To her horror, people on the train are being killed by zombies. Some creatures are coming after her so she runs back to the street, where chaos and destruction have already taken over. More zombies are coming for her but luckily her boyfriend Quinn takes her away in his car. In the morning, Quinn explains a friend has a place where they hide, but Isabelle wants to stop at home to grab some things first. At her apartment, Isabelle grabs all the cash she's saved and tells her sister Lily to come with them. The trio leaves in the car while watching Paris succumb to the chaos. In the present, Daryl's group travels through a village on a cart. Suddenly the mule stops in the middle of the road and refuses to go any further. A bunch of zombies come out, so Daryl has no choice but to release the mule and send it out as bait. While the zombies go after the animal, the group leaves the cart and takes a different path. Laurent asks what will happen to the mule and Isabelle lies, saying that the animal is fast enough to escape from the zombies. The group freezes when they hear whistling and an arrow flies into a pole. They rush to hide while noticing someone running nearby. Daryl chases after the shooter while dodging more arrows, only to be brought down by a bunch of masked children. The kids capture the others as well and take them to a fortified preschool where zombie bodies decorate the entrance. The leader Lou comes to check on them, so Isabelle tells her that they're nuns and Daryl is a priest. Lou agrees to untie them and shows them around. This group was started by the children who weren't picked up by their parents on the day of the outbreak. They survived by hunting, growing food, fixing old clothes, and keeping up with their lessons. The old nurse taught them everything before she got sick 6 months ago. During dinner, Lou asks Daryl to say a prayer, and somehow Daryl manages to share some inspiring words. He slurps the soup straight from the bowl and the kids copy him. After the meal is over, Daryl asks Lou where they can find another mule. Mouf suggests La Tarasque, which is a lizard from old stories. Lou clarifies it's a real man who behaves like a monster. He lives in a nearby castle and has horses, which he used to take all the supplies from the village. The kids once tried a raid to get supplies but it didn't go well, so Lou refuses to tell Daryl where the castle is. However, she changes her mind when Daryl points out that getting medicine could save the nurse and agrees to take him there in the morning. That night everyone gathers to watch TV, which is powered by a kid pedaling on a bike. Later in the bedroom, Daryl admits that he lied and medicine won't help the nurse, but they really need a horse. Isabelle says that she understands wanting to escape. In a flashback, Isabelle, Quinn, and Lily drive through the French countryside. Lily starts feeling sick so they stop at a gas station. When she pukes and grabs her stomach, Isabelle realizes that Lily is pregnant. Quinn says they can't take Lily with them in that condition and Isabelle agrees to leave her at a clinic, however when they hug she steals his car keys. While Quinn pauses to make a few calls, Isabelle gets in the car and drives away with her sister. In the middle of the road, Lily panics as she feels unbearable pain. They find an ambulance nearby and stop to ask for help, but all the people have become zombies. The women rush back to the car and get away. That night they arrive at the convent, where the priest notices that Lily's arm was bitten. The nuns take care of the wound and give them dry clothes. Lily is still in pain and asks Isabelle to take care of her baby. In the present, the kids in the school mock Laurent for thinking he's the chosen one, saying the nuns brainwashed him. Then he goes for a walk in the forest and finds the dead mule being eaten by a dog. After scaring the dog off, Laurent apologizes to the mule. When Isabelle and Sylvie find him, Laurent says they lied to him and walks away. Meanwhile Lou and Daryl make their way to the castle and Lou admits she can tell Daryl isn't a priest. He asks about the failed raid and Lou explains she tried to get into the castle with 3 other kids, but only she survived. When the duo finds the castle, they look over the drawbridge and find a moat filled with zombies. They enter a tool shed to look for some rope to cross the moat. Suddenly Daryl goes out and locks the door, saying that Lou will be safer there. Then Daryl uses the rope with a makeshift hook to jump over the bridge and finally make it to the castle. He finds the storeroom and confirms it's full of supplies. At that moment he hears a voice, so he goes to the basement and finds Arison, one of the boys Lou lost in the raid. When they're about to leave, the castle owner opens fire from a window. Daryl shows Arison how to use his rifle and tells him to keep the man distracted while he rushes to the main corridor. At the same time, someone opens the door of the tool shed to find Lou. Inside the castle, Daryl sneaks around until he finds the guy and disarms him. The man is happy to see a fellow American and introduces himself as RJ from Texas. Daryl drags him outside and Arison confirms the guy threatened to kill him. RJ explains he only wants to go home to his family, so Daryl has to inform him that most of humanity is gone. He announces they'll let Lou decide what to do with him and they leave with a horse plus a bunch of supplies on a cart. After lowering the drawbridge, the group starts crossing it but has to stop when one of the wheels gets stuck. Daryl puts down his weapon to fix it and RJ tries to steal it, so both men start fighting for it. In the struggle, they end up falling into the moat. While RJ is stuck hanging from the rope, Daryl uses his knife and Morning Star to defend himself. Soon the zombies surround RJ and start eating him. Daryl retrieves his rifle and shoots the gas cans that fell from the cart to cause an explosion that brings a bunch of zombies down. Unfortunately there are many creatures left and Daryl has to keep fighting. Suddenly a rope is thrown down the moat and he discovers that Moof released Lou. While the kids shoot the zombies coming for him, Daryl climbs the rope and rejoins the group. They notice that the other kid from the raid is a zombie in the moat and Lou gets ready to shoot him, but Daryl does it for her. When they return to the school, they're devastated to learn that the nurse has already died. Daryl admits he lied about curing her so Lou won't feel bad about being late. Lou makes sure to finish her so she won't become a zombie, then all the kids say goodbye in a humble funeral. Afterward Daryl and the nuns get ready to leave in the cart. Laurent wants to stay with the other kids but Isabel forces him to leave. At the convent, Stefan finds Daryl's tape recorder, the map with the marked road, and a journal with a picture of baby Laurent. A flashback shows that Lily died during childbirth and while the priest got ready to do an emergency C-section, she revived as a zombie. Veronique tied her up while the priest delivered the baby. The boy appeared to be dead at first, but they managed to revive him. The priest called him a miracle and Isabel chose to name him Laurent, after the saint. In the present, Daryl's group makes it to a city and Isabel brings Daryl to a theater where they meet an old conductor, who promises he'll let them use his radio. However, the radio only plays music. The man rushes to the stage, where he's made a full orchestra using mutilated zombies and tying them to the instruments. All the noise gets the attention of a zombie outside. Sylvie is too scared to shoot, but thankfully Daryl comes out and quickly kills it. The group gets back on the cart and hurries to leave the city, since there are more zombies coming. Sometime later they arrive on Paris and Isabel explains that most of the city is under the control of the guerriers. While they cross the cemetery, they're suddenly surrounded by a group of survivors. Isabel mentions the motto of the Union of Hope and the men put their weapons down. The leader Falu realizes that Laurent is the Messiah and is sad to hear that the priest is dead. The group is taken to Falu's community, who is living on a greenhouse. Looking in the distance, Daryl notices that the Eiffel Tower lost its tip. The community has homing pigeons and Isabel is allowed to send out a message, although an answer may take a few days or even a month. These survivors will take Isabel and Laurent north, so Daryl announces that his part of his job is done. He wants to find a radio and Falu promises to take him to the traders. Meanwhile Laurent comforts a grieving woman, which everyone sees as a sign of God. At the Power of the Living base, Stefan visits Janet to share everything he knows and show her Daryl's tape recorder. Janet hires Stefan to go after Daryl and leaves the room to check on the experiment. There's a zombie who was injected with something by La Fleur and chained to the walls. It manages to break the chains off but suddenly blood explodes out of its head. La Fleur reports that it took 18 seconds. In Paris, Daryl goes with Isabel to her apartment and they look at old pictures. Hidden in the fireplace, Isabel finds a box full of all the things she used to steal, which they can use to trade for a radio. When they try to leave, they find zombies blocking the door, so Isabel guides Daryl to the service entrance. They leave the building and find a zombie child who Isabel recognizes as her former neighbor. She asks Daryl not to kill her so they walk around her to try to avoid her. The girl keeps reaching for them and breaks some pots in the process. This gets the attention of the zombies in the building, who start jumping through the windows to come after them. Their bodies bleed all over the ground when they crash, but they're still alive and coming for Isabel. Daryl stabs a burner with a makeshift spear and pushes it against a door covered in vines so the acid will break through. Then the duo can finally leave. Moments later Sylvie, Laurent, Falu, and Emile join them. Isabel gives Laurent a picture of Lily so he can finally see his mother's face. Then the group takes the catacombs under Paris, crossing a long tunnel until they make it to a nightclub. Falu finds the informants, who are willing to tell Daryl about ships in the area in exchange for Isabel's stash. However, Daryl gets suspicious, saying that today she'll make their enemies pay. Then Daryl is sent out to a pit with a zombie that gets injected with Lafleur's mysterious concoction. While Daryl picks up an axe, the zombie goes crazy and breaks free of its restraints to charge at him. After thinking about his grandfather dying during the war, Daryl dodges the zombie, causing him to crash against the wall. When the creature charges again, Daryl hits it with the axe and traps it against a pillar, but he's forced to let go when the acid burns his hands. While the zombie frees itself, Daryl takes a flag from the wall and uses it to stab it again, bringing the creature down. Then he plants the flagpole in its head to finally kill it. The crowd isn't happy about the result. Next, the guards bring Quinn and chain him to Daryl by the wrists. 4 zombies appear around them, and these ones are also given the injection. 3 of the zombies start mutating, but the head of the 4th one explodes. Among the crowd, Isabel notices that Falu has arrived with his group. The first zombie that breaks free charges at the duo, only for the second zombie to jump on it and rip its jaw off. Afterward, the 2 remaining creatures come after the guys, and Daryl manages to cut a zombie's leg off. The other monster jumps on Daryl to bring him down, so Quinn begins hitting it in the head, but it's wearing protection. Then Quinn wraps the chain around the creature's head at the same time that the other zombie pulls him back, causing the monster to be pulled by the chain too. This frees Daryl, who gets his axe while Quinn beats one of the zombies to death. The men wrap the chain around the last creature's neck and kill it. This time the crowd likes the show and cheers for them. Daryl throws the zombie head at Janet, who orders a guard to kill the duo. Falu shoots the guard first and people start running in panic. The guards escort Jeannie to safety, and Isabel and Laurent are locked in a cell. After they're left alone, Isabel reveals she stole the keys from a guard and unlocks the cell. Daryl and Quinn use the chance to escape, and on their way out Daryl notices that Quinn has a wound, but he swears it's just a burn from the acid. When they run down a corridor, Quinn collapses and comes to terms with the fact that he doesn't have much time left. Daryl points out he can still give his life meaning by buying some time for his son and ex. Quinn agrees, and Daryl chops his hand off so they can finally split. Then Quinn runs to confront the guards while Daryl escapes. Outside the building, Daryl reunites with Falu's team and Emile removes the chain. Now Daryl can go down the tunnel and finally find Laurent and Isabel, but there's a gate separating them. At that moment, a zombified Quinn appears behind them and Isabel is forced to fight him. A second zombie approaches the gate and Daryl kills it with the axe before handing it to Laurent to save her aunt. The boy is hesitant, so Daryl assures him that God will forgive him. Laurent kills Quinn with the axe and the trio gets to escape. Afterward, Daryl, Isabel, and Laurent say goodbye to Falu. Sylvie kisses Emile and they promise to see each other again one day. Now Daryl can use Falu's car to take the group to the north. A few miles later, the car starts failing, so Daryl stops driving to fix it. Isabel uses the brake to confess that she lied. She actually made Laurent make the drawing after Daryl arrived at the convent. Suddenly Isabel stops talking and Daryl comes out from under the car only to be hit by Stefan, whose men have already captured the others. Isabel is stabbed while Stefan gets ready to shoot Laurent, who tells him God loves you. The sight of a child makes Stefan change his mind and he ends up shooting all his men instead. He announces that he'll kill Daryl next time and steals the watch. Noticing that drawing inside, Stefan tells them that the place is only a day's walk north and advises them to burn the truck to avoid being tracked. Then he leaves. After burning the truck and patching Isabel's wound, the group continues the journey on foot. The next day they finally make it to Mont Saint-Michel, also known as the Nest. A happy crowd welcomes them warmly and Isabel is taken to the infirmary. The Nest leader is Losong, who is also American. When Isabel is feeling better, she comes out and finds Daryl teaching the locals how to use guns. For the next few days, the group gets to live in peace with the locals, enjoying good meals and companionship. One afternoon, Losong informs Daryl that they've found a boat he can use if he still wants to return to America. The boat will be there in 2 days and Daryl will have to walk to the north coast, so Losong suggests that he set out at dawn. Daryl doesn't know if he should leave or stay with Isabel and Laurent. Meanwhile, Stefan tells Janet that Daryl overpowered him and killed all his men, but Janet doesn't believe him. Stefan then explains killing children is a line he'd never cross, so Janet calls him weak and makes her guards knock him down to drag him away. At the Nest, Isabel finds Daryl packing and tries to convince him to stay, but Daryl explains he has his own family to go to. Before leaving, he puts down the Rubik's Cube on Laurent's bed. During his trip, Daryl sees an American flag and follows it to find a bunch of graves. This is where the American soldiers were buried during the war and Daryl cries when he finds his grandfather. At that moment he sees the boat coming, so Daryl yells to get their attention. This causes some zombies to appear, so Daryl fights them as he makes his way down the beach. He gets ready to leave, but suddenly Laurent appears on the hill, and now Daryl doesn't know whether to take the boat or go back. In the USA, a man riding Daryl's bike is being chased by a car. He stops driving to open fire and the car freezes in the middle of the road. Carol comes out and explains she's looking for the bike's owner, but the man says he just found the bike lying around. When the man tries to check the trunk, Carol knocks him out. Moments later the man wakes up tied in the trunk with Carol pointing his gun at his face.